The Rangers' 7-game winning streak to start the playoffs is over, thanks to a rough start from Max Scherzer and some just boneheaded lapses from this pitching staff. A comeback that just fell short. We're going to talk about what went right and what went wrong for the Rangers in Game 3 of the ALCS. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for all 5 seasons as founder and host of the Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to listen every single day and comment nearly any single thing below. Shout out to all of y'all who are joining live after loss, unless you're an Astros fan here for Schadenfreude. No unwelcome to you, whatever the opposite of welcome is. Before we get into today's show, this episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms used for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Now, this was a sloppy one, an 8-5 loss for the Rangers. Mad Max on the hill after nearly over a month missing time with that Taveras major injury, and looked sharp in the first inning. Looked like, okay, this might be a vintage Max Scherzer performance, and then things started to slip away from him. A 3-run second inning, a run in the third, a run in the fourth inning, and by the time he was done, the Rangers were down 5-0. And at that point, they were getting no hit by the time he was out of this game. It was a rough start for this Rangers team, and the line, I think, is a little deceptive on Max Scherzer. I think his pitches were mostly okay, but the ones that really weren't, and that is a big difference in why he was able to go 5 innings and 5 runs versus, a couple better pitches here and there, a couple, fewer spots that he doesn't miss, and he's maybe through 4 or 5 innings of 1 or 2 runs as opposed to the 5 runs that he earned. I mean, he had 4 strikeouts this one, just 1 walk, and also had 1 hit by pitch to Jordan Alvarez, hit in the foot on, I believe it was a cutter. Maybe it was a changeup that hit him literally. I think it was a cutter that hit him literally in the back foot while Max Scherzer was up 0-2. I bet Framber Valdez thought that 0-2 hit by pitch on Framber was also intentional. Maybe he'll go and plunk Marcus Semien in the next game just because he can. I don't know. We'll see if we even get to that point. But I'm hoping the Rangers don't. Hoping the Rangers can take care of business in Game 4 and Game 5, because this was just not great from Scherzer, not what you're hoping for. And it was just little things that kept coming back to bite the Rangers, things that, if the game was played over again, which you can't do, unfortunately, maybe things break a little bit better the Rangers way. A lot of 2-out runs that were scored, a lot of hits with runners in scoring position, including Martin Maldonado, a multi-hit game for Martin Maldonado. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with the 2-run single in that second inning? I mean, these hitters who just frankly are not very good, the ones that are beating you. I mean, Dubon had a 3-hit day, and he's a fine hitter, but he's not great. I mean, you walk Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker is a great hitter. Don't get me wrong. Kyle Tucker is a very, very good hitter in the midst of a legendarily bad slump. He was hitting below 100 in this game, heading into this game in the postseason, and the Rangers walked him 3 times, and he scored twice. He also had a double that would have scored a normal runner and not Jordan Alvarez in front of him, but a monumentally boneheaded decision to send him with Adolis Garcia throwing in right field from first base on a double. I just don't understand the move there. There was also another send in Game 1, I believe it was. Maybe it was Game 2, sending Jordan Alvarez. I think it was Game 2 on a Michael Brantley double that did end up scoring Jordan only because of the throw by Corey Seager that ended up hitting the mound. And that's kind of what allowed the slow man to score. But it's just, you limited the damage. I mean, you got out of a game without Jordan Alvarez hitting a home run. I mean, he hit a ball far enough to be a home run. And we'll talk about Leody Taveras and his sensational catch. But just a ho-hum 2-for-4 day with a pair of RBIs on an RBI single from Yordan Alvarez. Just a couple of singles, no doubles, no walks, no homers by Yordan Alvarez. That's a day you can live with. And the rest of this lineup, I mean, Michael Brantley, who had absolutely crushed Max Scherzer in the past, went 0 for 5 with a strikeout tonight. I mean, Alex Bregman went 0 for 4 with a walk tonight. He did have a couple of hits from Jose Altuve, but just one run batted in. But it's the bottom of this lineup that was doing damage. I mean, you put Kyle Tucker on so many times, even in the middle of the slump. Jose Abreu just had one hit, also had a strikeout, did have a run scored. I mean, it's just time and time again that this pitching staff was beating itself. And it felt like you were in such a hole, down 5-0. Thankfully, you got the Josh Jung home run to put you on the board, crawl you back in this one. But you had to use the B tier, the backup plan. I'm sure there were a million different contingency plans for how this game would go, depending on how Scherzer looked. If he was getting just absolutely rocked, for you to pull him out of there after 2 innings, then I'm sure they had a game plan for that. And this one didn't feel like it made much sense because he was having so many quality pitches, but the ones that he messed up real bad. And he messed up those pitches to the wrong hitters, and those hitters ended up taking advantage. Even Martin Maldonado is a professional hitter. Even though he's the worst hitter in baseball, he is still a professional hitter. And him having a 2-hit day in a game that you really, really wanted to win, ended up being a lot closer than it looked like it was going to be through the first 5 innings. Those things come back to bite you. I mean, Chris Stratton coming on and allowing a couple of hits. I mean, we see why the Rangers didn't trust these guys in the high leverage spots in Chris Stratton and Will Smith. And Will Smith gives up the 2 RBI single to Yordan Alvarez on a pitch that wasn't that bad. He got Yordan Alvarez to swing and miss at a fastball down the middle, a Will Smith fastball down the middle. That's not something that I thought would ever happen in a playoff game. And honestly, he wasn't that bad. And the 2 runs by Chris Stratton were both inherited runners, which I feel like is almost kind of karmic, because it felt like every time that Chris Stratton came on later on in the season with runners on base, he ended up allowing those inherited runners to score. I mean, mainly the situation that comes to mind is when he came in a bases loaded jam when the Rangers were up, I believe it was 4-0 in Minnesota, and it was Jordan Montgomery's worst start as a Ranger. And he had the bases loaded. In comes Chris Stratton, and Chris Stratton gives up a grand slam and the lead, which was incredibly frustrating. But there are some positives from this one. There are some things that the Rangers did well, but it felt like an opportunity missed. The Rangers got 3 runs off of this very, very good Astros bullpen. They finally got to Brian Abreu for a run. Brian Abreu hadn't allowed a single run in months. I believe it was the end of July the last time he allowed a single earned run. It was just the single earned run, a walk, and an Evan Carter near infield hit, very close with the Baltimore-esque chop, and a close play by Jose Altuve to get him at first base. A good walk worked by Marcus Semien. That was a really good plate appearance against a very, very tough pitcher, who the only way you can really get to him is if he gets himself out of it and stays out of the strike zone. And just not a great day from Corey Seager, an 0 for day from Seager, and didn't strike out, went 0 for 4 though, and hasn't had a great series. It's been frustrating to see that from Seager. I thought that it was just a couple of games on the road that, oh, well, he's facing off against Framber Valdez. Oh, he's facing off against Justin Verlander. He did have a hit off of Framber Valdez. He might have had a couple, actually, now that I think about it. I think it was actually just the one. But you're like, okay, he's coming back to Globe Life Field. He absolutely crushes it there in the playoffs, especially. So he's going to be able to, see this pitcher well. He's a good pitcher, Javier. By no means am I demeaning him, but he had a 4.5 ERA this year for this season for a reason. He was not his usual self. I thought that the start in Minnesota was a little bit of Minnesota getting this without it, as opposed to Christian Javier just being fantastic. But it seems like it's just Christian Javier finding whatever it was in the postseason that he very much did not have in the regular season. You got to tip your cap to him. Just a really, really good day. And the only mistake that was on his ledger was the home run to Josh Jung. Coming up, we're going to look at Josh Jung's importance, what the Rangers did well, and what might go well for them because of this game moving forward. But first, this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. The MLB playoffs are right here, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is right now, with studs like, I don't know, I'm about to say Max Scherzer, but not today. Maybe another day. Nathan Eovaldi, Josh Jung, Leody Taveras, Nathaniel Lowe. So many stars, and you can pick more or less on stats for these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be live again after the Rangers and Astros square off in Game 4, hopefully after a Rangers win. We'll see what's going on there, but either way, you can catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, I feel like the Rangers had to switch up the vibes after this one, after a loss like this that was so frustrating, demoralizing. Maybe Creed can still be played, but maybe don't invite them to the stadium. Maybe they're obviously switching up who is throwing out the first pitch tomorrow. I think it's going to be, I don't know if Beltre is going to be there at all this week. Maybe Adrian Beltre there. He's never had bad vibes once a day in his life. So sure, just having him around. I know he's busy doing dad stuff, but invite the whole family, have them come to a Rangers ALCS game, bring their good vibes and bring those over. But there were some good things. Speaking of third basemen who do things well for the Texas Rangers, Joshua freaking Jung, have yourself a day, a multi-homer game, a 4 RBI game, drove in 4 of the 5 Rangers runs and absolutely crushed it. Coming off a game where he just looked absolutely overmatched, a couple of games where he looked overmatched against Justin Verlander, who got the benefit of the doubt on a strike 3 call that kind of sent him into a tizzy of having to expand the zone a whole lot more, and Verlander just abused him the next at bat. And then against Fromber, who I thought he'd have a great day, he had a terrible day at the plate. And here comes Joshua Jung, Joshua mother-loving Jung, and is not fazed by it at all, not fazed by being absolutely snubbed for the Gold Glove third baseman finalist. Not even a finalist. Not even a finalist. The other guys ahead of him, I think, very much on reputation. Bregman does not even have the reputation of being an elite defensive third baseman. I don't have any idea what metric those guys are looking at, what nonsense they're looking at to say, oh yeah, Alex Bregman's actually a better defender than Josh Jung this season. Get out of here. He is not a better hitter than Josh Jung in this postseason. Jung is hitting 355 with an 1170 OPS. Maybe time to move him back up in the order, because you have your 8 and 9 hole hitters. It's great to have your 8 and 9 hole hitters hitting over 320 and with an OPS over 1,000 for each of them. But maybe you might want them a little bit higher in the lineup because you have other guys in there. And Garver, who's hitting just 238 with a 700 OPS, and Jonah Heim, who's hitting 220 and somehow in the 5 hole. I don't love that for Jonah. I know he did have the home run, but it feels like a lot of mixing and matching. I do love Evan Carter in the 3 hole. I think that's great, having your top 4 be set in Semien, Seager, Carter, Adolis. Then behind that, that's where you kind of mix and you match. I think Taveras in the 9 hole is fine. You can get away with that. But Josh Jung, I think he really needs to hit higher up in the order. Maybe it doesn't make that much of a difference, but I would just like to see it, have him be in some of these bigger spots than Jonah, because you have a multi-homer day. It's just, it just feels like you should be hitting a little bit higher up in the order, but he wasn't the only one having a great day. Leody Taveras with the catch of the year. No, the catch of the decade. No, the catch of forever. If this Rangers team had come back and won a 1-run game, that would have been a moment you look back on forever. I think we still will. If the Rangers end up winning this series, even if they don't, that was an absolutely sensational catch. Another guy who was snubbed for a Gold Glove this year in center field. I think he's going to win a Gold Glove out there eventually. The Rangers had 4 different players be Gold Glove finalists. Actually, no. Scratch that. 5. I forgot about Corey Seager. 3 out of 4 Rangers infielders are Gold Glove finalists. And Nathaniel Lowe, what? I mean, deserved. But if you told me that last year, I probably would have had a stroke and called you a liar. And Marcus Semien, deserved. He should be a no doubt winner. Corey Seager, okay. He did have a good defensive play late on in this game that saved a run because he is 6'4" and has very long arms. That was a great play. Jonah Heim, I think he should definitely win it. I shouldn't think it should be close. He has been phenomenal in every aspect of being a defensive catcher, and Adolis Garcia in right field. About darn time. I don't think he's even been a finalist before. He might have been a finalist 1 year, but he deserves the love that he has gotten. He also had an outfield assist in this one. Yordan Alvarez at home in the ninth inning. Good to see Martin Perez back on the hill in this one. Apparently, he had been dealing with a hip injury, which is why he didn't pitch in the ALDS, but the Rangers kept him on the roster. They didn't end up needing him, didn't end up having to put him on the IL, which would have meant he would have had to miss this series, which is good. To have him available and out there and pitching an inning. I mean, for the Rangers to have to use the few amount of pitchers that they did use, I think bodes really well for them. But I mean, still a good performance for Cody Bradford. I'm surprised he only got an inning and a third. Honestly, pretty surprised. But hey, Stratton did an okay job until he didn't, which is kind of the story of this pitching staff. Is they did a good enough job until it wasn't good enough. And that was incredibly frustrating. But I do want to also give a huge props to Adolis Garcia with that opposite field RBI single to score. I believe that was, Marcus Semien, who had gotten to second base on the walk and the ground out by Evan Carter. Just a very, very good plate appearance by him, hitting a 99-mile-an-hour fastball from one of the nastiest pitchers in baseball in Brian Abreu on the outer black, low and away on the corner, just dotted exactly where he wanted, but he had seen the pitch before. This one was ramped up a little bit, about a mile an hour faster than the pitch he had seen before, but he recognized it. He went to the opposite field. The Astros were playing him to pull, and he used the whole field, and that is why he was the RBI leader in Major League Baseball before he went on the IL, and I think would have led Major League Baseball in runs batted in had he been healthy for the entire season. Guess we'll never know, as the Astros tend to say, but still an overall okay offensive day. I just really wish the Rangers could have done a little bit more to get to Christian Javier. But I mean, at some point you have to see what Christian Javier has done in his postseason career and just say, you know what, the guy just takes it to another level in the postseason. Sometimes guys just do that. We've seen what Nathan Eovaldi can do, and it makes me kind of terrified if the Rangers do, God forbid, literally, God forbid, this series goes to a game 7, because it will destroy us all, no matter who you are rooting for, or if you're rooting for nobody. I mean, the nation itself will be ripped asunder by the terror wrought of a game 7 between these two teams, no matter who wins. But I really don't want to see Christian Javier in a game 7. I think Max Scherzer moving forward will be much sharper than he was. I mean, he'd never taken this long to come back and immediately come into a start, let alone a playoff start. I mean, Max Scherzer was saying before the game, he's like, even I have no idea what the heck to expect from myself. And, it was really frustrating because he was so close to having a really great outing, but just 2 or 3 or 4 pitches going the wrong way. And that's the ball game. But again, sometimes that's the way baseball go. Sometimes that is the way baseball go. Even Will Smith having some good at bats and just allowing a little bloop single by Yordan Alvarez to score a couple runs, and a bloop single to Martin Maldonado, or a untimely walk to Kyle Tucker in the middle of a very bad slump. It's just the little things that the Rangers have done so very, very well throughout these 8 playoff games, well, 7 up to this point, and that they didn't do in this one. Something they had done pretty well overall in the regular season. I mean, they'd had some goof ups with their bullpen, but and another, we'll get into the good things the Rangers did in just a second, but I mean, hat tip to this Astros team that has been an offense that has been in the first couple games predicated almost entirely on the home run. And here they were doing the Rangers early season offense of, we're going to go 5 for 12 with runners in scoring position. We're not going to leave that many on base based on how many we have. We're going to score a lot with 2 outs. We're going to break your back. And those are some of the most heartbreaking kinds of runs scored. There was a bunch of jams. The Rangers were just this close to getting out of it, and they just couldn't tonight. Frustrating loss for the Rangers. I think it'll be Urquidy, and we'll talk more about game 4 in the third segment. In the third segment, we talk about what went right for the Rangers, because even though this was a loss, it was very frustrating. There are some things that happened in this game that bode pretty well for the Rangers moving forward. We're going to talk about that in just a second, right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. The Jase case is a personalized emergency kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jase Medical now offers customizability for your Jase case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. Another purchase point, you can also go get a gift card for your family or loved ones so they can get a Jase case of their own. So you check these out. You can have these medications on hand when times are tough, when it is hard to get to the doctor, to see a doctor quickly, or to get the medicine, medications you need. The Jase case will be there for you. So go to jasemedical.com and enter code locked on at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code locked on at jasemedical.com. Shout out to the Aviators making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day on Fridays, Thursday's show, whatever the day after tomorrow is. I'll be going live after game 6, 5, whatever. I'm bad at numbers. I'm bad at remembering what day it is. I'll be talking about the Rangers and the Astros in the ALCS, whatever day that is, going live to talk about the Rangers. Hopefully closing out at home a series win over the Astros. Even if it's not, you can catch every pitch with the Hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, the Rangers got lit up a little bit in this one, and I talked a little bit in yesterday's show and maybe a little bit the day before. There were a bunch of different plans for the Rangers depending on how Max Scherzer threw, and the Rangers had a lot of depth in their bullpen in terms of long guys, not in terms of guys you super trust in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning of close games. No, there are 3 guys there, and it seems like after tonight, you're still very clearly thinking there are 3 guys there, and then you hope that your starters or your combo starters or whoever's going to be starting in game 4 can get you 6 innings so that for the 7th, 8th, 9th, you can go Spores, Chapman, and Leclerc and feel good about that. This is the first game that Jose Leclerc has not pitched in the postseason for the Rangers. I think that bodes well moving forward. And another thing that bodes well for the Rangers moving forward is that the Rangers got to Hector Neris. They got a home run off of him. It was Josh Jung, and now Hector Neris' ERA in the playoffs is 11.57. They also got 1 run off of Bryan Abreu, who has thrown 3 games in 4 days, and 2 of those are in losses. That bodes well for the Rangers because he's almost assuredly not available for game 4. There's no way they're going to throw Bryan Abreu 4 games in 5 days. And if they do, well, maybe the Rangers will get to him even more. He will be absolutely exhausted by that point, and then he's definitely going to be down for game 5. So, yeah, that bodes well for the Rangers. They also had to throw Ryan Pressly. This is his 2nd game in 3 days. If Ryan Pressly throws tomorrow, that will be 3 games in 4 days, and he will be out for Friday's game almost assuredly, because I don't think they're throwing these guys a whole lot of 4 and 5 days. That feels like too much, even for how good this Astros bullpen is. And the Astros bullpen, as nasty as they've been in the playoffs, they are exhausted. They are very exhausted. Like I said, this Houston Astros starting rotation during the year was not nearly as good as it has been in years past, and especially in terms of going deep into ball games. I mean, this Astros pen, in Neris, Abreu, Pressly, all those guys, and Montero as well, they have been used a lot. They have been used a whole lot. And, their stuff is nasty. They know how to hold it down in the postseason. Pressly has yet to blow a save in his postseason career, but all these guys have been used a whole lot. And the more they get used, the more exhausted they get, and the easier it'll be for the Rangers to get to them. These Rangers relievers, they've ridden them hard in the postseason, but they didn't ride them that hard during the regular season. Jose Leclerc was not pitching, 3 games in 4 days. He was not pitching almost any back-to-backs. He was not pitching, 3 games in a row ever. It just wasn't happening. And for the most part, Chapman down the stretch was not pitching in back-to-back days and still should not be doing that going forward. At least got Chapman 2 days off consecutively after throwing him in back-to-back games. And Spores also got 2 days off. All those top-end guys got 2 days off. That is a good thing for the Rangers. And another good thing is Scherzer was able to get them 4 innings. They didn't have to throw Bradford for that many innings. I don't know if they're going to throw him in back-to-back games, but it's possible. Will Smith was out there for a third of an inning. John Gray was back out there. You got to throw him in a game. where you were still competitive. You got to see what John Gray looked like when he got back on the hill, and he was throwing pretty hard. He was throwing 98, which he'd done a couple times during the season, not often, but he had done it a couple times. I mean, the slider velocity was up 3.1 miles an hour. He only threw 15 pitches. The fastball velocity, his yearly average was 95.7 miles an hour, and tonight it averaged 97.3. That's really good. And I think he's probably going to be in one inning stints for now, because that's what we saw him in this one. I was kind of surprised they threw him into not a clean inning. That was a little shocking to me, but hey, he took it like a champ, came in, threw one pitch, got out of it, jam. That was a good moment for the Rangers, kept them in this ball game, and was able to get a good enough second or as one full inning of work. He did allow the run, did allow a walk and a couple of hits. But I mean, getting him back out there, getting his feet under him and seeing what he looks like, you'll figure out what he feels like tomorrow. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be trusted as a high leverage guy right away. And I think ideally you would like him to be able to be a starter. But if you have to move forward where your game 4 person is a combination of Heaney and Dunning, I think that's solid. Even if you go to the World Series and you have to have one game of Heaney and Dunning, and we're seeing even in the 7-game series, you're only having one game of that in the series. So it's definitely survivable. And they did a really good job. Both those guys did a really good job against Baltimore. Now, I think the Houston Astros offense is a little bit better than Baltimore, and it might be a little harder for them to replicate that kind of success against Houston, but it's possible. It's entirely possible. And having those guys be fresh, not having to use either of those guys in this game, so it'll be a little over a week since either of them have thrown. They will have plenty of rest, and if you need them both to go 3 innings, they can. If you want one of them to go 4 innings, that'd be great, and we'll see how they're looking at that point. But I mean, this thing bodes well for the Rangers. There are some signs that things are going well for the Rangers, including Leody Taveras in general, which I was still seeing people dogging his defense after that play, which, again, there are some concerns with Leody Taveras that he's not absolutely perfect. There were some circuitous routes. There were some moments where there were a few mental lapses. But if you wanted to pick this time to dog on Leody Taveras after he made the catch of the year, like, given the circumstances, given the context, like, I have not seen a better catch in the playoffs in years, maybe ever, honestly. And he is hitting like crazy. He also reached base again tonight. He's reached base in all but one of the games in the playoffs this year. He had a 2.7 baseball reference for the season. And I tweeted this out, but the amount of homegrown players who have had a higher B-WAR season since 2015, higher than 2.7 since 2015. Here's the list: is Joey Gallo. That's it. That's the whole list since 2015. If you want to count Elvis Andrus, I kind of do. It's kind of a weird, he wasn't, signed by the Rangers internationally, but I say if they get here in a trade before they get to AA, you can kind of count that. So Ezekiel Duran, you could maybe kind of count that. He did not have a higher B-WAR season than Leody did this year. Also, Josh Jung did not have a higher WAR season than Leody Taveras this year, even though he was absolutely sensational. I mean, Leody, guys who play elite center field defense, and it is elite. It's not perfect, but it is freaking elite. He is incredibly fast. He makes these spectacular plays. He has got one of the best arms in the outfield. He is switch hitting very well. He does it occasionally for power. He is getting on base. He is stealing bases. Guys like that don't grow on trees. I don't know why everyone is so hell-bent on trading Leody Taveras for starting young pitching. You know how many guys how many teams would kill for Leody Taveras? I mean, there are so many of them. And Leody is still very young. He just turned 25, and which means he's probably going to get even better. Remember those streaky months that he would have where he would hit, 280 with 6 home runs in a month, and then another month he'd hit like 350 with an on base of like 420 or whatever it was in that month of May, I believe it was, when he was just absolutely insanely on fire. He also did that in September while nobody was noticing. He's also been doing it in October while people have been absolutely noticing. And this guy is so good. Homegrown players like that do not home grow on trees. And as much as I love Evan Carter and as much as I love Wyatt Langford, and I think they'll both be probably pretty good, it is probably, it is not definitely, it is not, I have for sure seen this over a large sample size. I know exactly what they're going to do in a full season in Major League Baseball. I mean, Wyatt Langford, we've seen like 50 minor league games from him. They were sensational. They were great minor league games. And he made it all the way up to AAA. And had Evan Carter not been hitting like crazy, and had there been somebody else on this roster who was, not absolutely crushing it, maybe would have seen Wyatt Langford make his major league debut and maybe be on this postseason roster. But we didn't. And there's no need to rush him to the big leagues. He has to earn his spot in the big leagues. Evan Carter did that with the way that he played it down the stretch, the way that he played those couple of games in Round Rock, and also because there was an opportunity because Adolis Garcia was hurt and you didn't really know what was going to happen with that. And you needed some kind of, gap filler. And Evan Carter was that. He was not intended to be a little savior. He ended up being that, and that was fine. But it still boggles my mind that people don't appreciate how incredibly good Leody Taveras is. Is he Mike Trout? No. Is he Julio Rodriguez? No. But he's really dang good. And the amount of homegrown players the Rangers have produced in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, their entire freaking franchise. It has been a long time since they've had just a good homegrown player. And there is absolutely no need to rush him off. And anybody who is not celebrating this fantastic postseason that Leody Taveras is having right now just does not want to enjoy the fun things in baseball. And that is an absolute bummer for them, because I'm going to enjoy the absolute crap out of Leody Taveras. That man is not going anywhere. There are very few people in Major League Baseball I would trade him for. And right now, I don't think the Rangers would trade him for just about anybody. Rangers will be back at it tomorrow. We'll see who the Game 4 starters are. Probably going to be Jose Urquidy versus the Heaney-Dunning combo. Rangers bats need to get going. Hopefully we'll see a Corey Seager bounce back game. You don't see him held down for 2 or 3 games in a row very often, if ever. I know he's going to be pissed off for greatness, as the Nick Saban saying goes. And I am very, very excited to see how this team bounces back after their first postseason loss of the year. Hopefully they won't make it too. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy Texas Rangers ALCS baseball.